Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a fairly easy, fun fall card for you. To get started, we're going to be using the banner double stitch dies, and I'm going to grab that second largest one. I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and we'll go ahead and die cut that. I'm running that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And then for inks, we're going to use Scattered Straw, Spiced Marmalade, and Crackling Campfire. So let's start off with that lightest color. I've got a Hero Arts blending brush, and I'm going to apply the Scattered Straw all over this little banner. And then we're going to be adding those other colors kind of around the edges so that we'll leave that center area the lightest. So let's grab that second color, and that's the Spiced Marmalade. So I'm going to come in from the sides, and I'm going to go in maybe about an inch on each side. Again, leaving that middle part lightest. So that'll kind of highlight our little squirrel that we're going to be placing in the center. And I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide inks, so these blend really easily. They're very easy to use. And then I've got the Crackling Campfire, and I won't come in quite as far, but I do want to frame this nicely with this darker color. I'm going to go all the way around the edges. And then let's go back in reverse order of the little blender brushes and blend these together. And then we'll take that lightest brush and just blend all of that. So you can see how beautifully these blend together. I'm going to heat set this because we're going to be doing some embossing. So you want to make sure that panel is completely dry. Once it's completely dry, I'm adding some Pink and Main anti-static powder over the top so that when we add the embossing powder, it will only stick where we want it to be. For the stencil, I've got the Autumn Breeze Lawn Fawn stencil. This is so beautiful. This is brand new this year. And I'm going to just kind of move this around and decide where I want to position those leaves. I just kind of want a scattering of leaves coming from that upper left-hand corner down towards the bottom right. I've placed this on my Wendy Vecchi Make Art station, which is a magnetic station. And then I'm taking some Post-it tape, and I'm just going to mask off some of those little scattered leaves down at the bottom. To do the embossing, I've got the Versamark Watermark Ink Pad. So this is an embossable pigment ink. It's clear. And I've got a foam applicator tool. I use this one just for my Versamark ink. You can see that I have it labeled so that it keeps it pretty clean. So I use this one just to add my Versamark Watermark ink. And I'm basically pouncing it on over that stencil. So I'm not really blending it, I'm just kind of pouncing it on, making sure I get a nice coating of that. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and remove that stencil. And that ink will easily wash off your stencil, so you can just put that in some warm water and it'll come right off. And so you can see that there's a glaze where I've placed that embossing. Now I've got some Ranger Gold embossing powder, and I'm going to sprinkle that all over. And then let's tap away any excess. If you have some where you didn't want it, you could take a dry brush and just brush that away. And then I've got my heated craft tool, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set this. So you'll see that when it's embossed, it's nice and shiny, and where it's not embossed, you can see that it looks dark. So you want to make sure you get rid of any of those dark areas, and then you'll know that it's completely embossed. And this just adds a really pretty, elegant look to this card. So give you a closer look at that. Next, I also want to add some more gold with the Winsor & Newton Metallic Gold ink. And you do want to shake this up really well before you use it. I've got a small number 0 paintbrush, and I'm going to spatter this entire panel. And what that will do is just bring everything together. It will just kind of add to the leaf pattern in the background, and it also adds some more of that metallic shine. So once I spattered the entire panel, let me give you a closer look at that. And you do want to make sure you wash your brush right away after you use that. You don't want to let it dry on your brush. So here's that closer look, and you can see how pretty that shimmer is that you get. Going back to that same die that we used to die cut this background panel, I'm going to cut it from some chocolate bar Lawn Fawn textured cardstock, and then I'm also going to die cut the next largest banner die as well. And there I was just showing you that texture on the cardstock. It's kind of got a linen texture to it. So I went ahead and die cut those two. This first one is just to glue to the back of the one that we already did, just to give it a little bit more substance. And then that larger one is going to frame this nicely. For the card base, I've got some craft cardstock that measures 4¼ inches by 11 inches, and I've scored it at 5½ inches. And then for our image, we're using the Art Impressions Feast Mode stamp set. And this is just so cute. It's got tons of little sentiments. We're going to be using that little squirrel in the upper left-hand corner. But any of these would be perfect for this card. With my VersaFine Vintage Sepia ink, this is a permanent brown ink. I've placed some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock in my mini MISTI stamp positioner, and I stamped that a couple of times. For the coloring, I've got Sugared Almond Pink, Light Gray, and Gray Brown. And this is some really simple coloring. This will go very quickly. And I'm going to use the Zig, these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I'll use that Zig blender pen to do my blending. I'm just going to add a few shadows here and there. I'll color some of those little acorns on camera, and then the rest I will color off camera. And I did start with that light gray, and then I'm adding that darker color over top of that. And I used just the light gray on the little tummy area. Let's go ahead and do the face. Just adding some shadows down here where the sweater meets his little chin. And then I already added that Sugared Almond Pink to the cheeks. And we'll just blend that together. So again, this is some simple coloring on this little critter. And you can go back in if you need to add some more shadowing, just go back in with that same ink. And then with beige and mid brown, I'll color in the little acorns. Using that mid brown on the top part of the acorn, and then I'll use the beige on the lower section of each of these acorns. So again, I'll just show you a couple of these, and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. So there's that beige that I'm just adding to the bottom section. And then for the sweater, I'm going to use sand and brown, and both of these have a little bit of a reddish tint to them. So it's going to blend in nicely with the background that we've created. Now you could certainly add darker stripes to this. You've got some pattern on that sweater, so you could use that to your advantage and just do the sweater, the stripes in a different color. I decided to do it in just these two colors, just using that darker color to do some shadowing. And then with my detail scissors, since this set does not come with the coordinating dies, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. I will leave a little white border all the way around. So that'll sit on the center of this banner. But first, I wanted to wrap some twine. This is some Lawn Fawn twine, and it's a craft color. And I'm going to just place a little bit of my Tombow mono glue tape on the back just to hold it in place while I wrap this around. So I wrapped it around about 3 times, and then I'm going to go ahead and tie a bow. This will give a little place for our squirrel to sit, so he won't just be floating out on the center of the card. This will ground him a little bit on our scene. So I'm going to use my reverse tweezers just to clamp that down while I finish tying that bow. So I played around with that for quite a while just to adjust the size of that bow. Here I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and then you'll want to cut away those ends. So let's go ahead and pop this up on that other banner. So I'm going to use some iCraft foam tape. This is a 3D foam tape, and I've placed it all around the back. I want to pop this up nicely. And I'm using my Cricut weeding tool to remove the backing, and then we can go ahead and center this on this larger banner. You could certainly line it up right at the top of that banner if you wanted it to look a little bit more like it overlaps. But I thought I wanted to keep that frame, that chocolate brown frame, all the way around the edges. Now I've got some small 3D foam squares. These are from scrapbook.com. I've placed those all around the back of the little squirrel, and I'm going to again use that Cricut weeding tool and remove the backing. Let's go ahead and place this right on top of that twine, so just above that twine. Now here's my card base. I'm placing it back in the mini MISTI, and I'm going to grab a sentiment from that same set. And here I'm showing you could line this up at the top of your card if you wanted to, but I think I'm going to just have a little bit of that craft showing at the top as well. So here are some of the sentiments. You can take a look at those. I'm going to grab that one that says thankful for you. So it would be either a Thanksgiving card or just a generic fall card. So I'm going to center it on that, below that banner. I've just removed that banner so we can do our stamping. And again, I'll stamp this a couple times. I like to stamp it lightly at first and then stamp it a second time. Now I did decide to go back to that gold metallic ink and spatter this entire card base. I did want to cover my sentiment, and I'll show you how we can fill in around that here in a second. So I'm going to spatter, and I'm really only worried about those edges. And here I just take that paintbrush, dip it right into the ink, and I can dot on a little bit around that sentiment so that I can be careful not to get any directly on the sentiment. I set that aside to dry, and let's go ahead and attach this larger banner to the card. I've placed plenty of glue on there, and I am using the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive to glue this down. Now I did want to add some jewels, so I've got these jewels from Buttons, Galore, and more, and these are the gold jewels, and these are just absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to tie in that pretty gold embossing that we have and that gold spattering, and I'm going to just sprinkle these around the card. I'm using my Marvy jewel picker to pick those up, and then let's go ahead and attach those to the card. So let me give you a closer look at the finished card. You can see all that beautiful gold metallic that we have in the background. This is a really simple, fun, easy card to create. If you're going to be creating multiples for the holidays, this would be perfect. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.